At the height of its power, the British Empire was often described by the immortal phrase, "the empire on which the sun never sets." Whether day or night, the sun was always shining on at least one of its hundreds of territories. Nearly every continent bore the footprint of Britain, from bustling seaports to desolate lands bathed in the dawn light. Today, we look back on the earliest footsteps along the path that built the British Empire, from 1497 to 1997. At that time, England and Scotland coexisted like two rivers yet to merge, each scarred by war and plague. The Hundred Years' War, 1337 to 1453, with France left England exhausted, while the Black Death swept away a third of its population, leaving a deep sense of dread in the national psyche. As central power faltered under King Henry VI, tensions among the nobility exploded into civil war. The Wars of the Roses, 1455 to 1485, were a painful chapter where Englishmen turned on one another, causing not just loss of life, but a collapse of trust. One can almost hear the silent cries of grieving families and abandoned villages, each sword strike on the battlefield carving a wound into the nation's memory. In August 1485, the Battle of Bosworth marked a turning point. Before the sun rose, Henry Tudor, carrying a dream of restoring order, defeated Richard III. The fall of the House of York gave rise to the Tudor dynasty. This was more than a change of monarchs. It was a signal of renewal, a period of healing and growth, as England sought to mend the fractures of its past. In 1496, King Henry VII granted John Cabot, a Genoese sailor fueled by dreams of discovery, a secret royal map and a small ship brimming with hope. A year later, in the summer of 1497, Cabot's oar touched the shores of North America, where the waves of the Atlantic whispered to an unfamiliar beach. That journey, like an arrow piercing uncharted skies, paved the way for successive fleets. Each white sail appeared like the first letter in a new colonial story written across the New World. Under King Henry VIII, 1509 to 1547, England veered toward a new destiny by severing ties with the Roman Catholic Church. The 1534 Supremacy Act was a historical hammer, declaring the king as the head of the Church of England, giving birth to Anglicanism. But Henry didn't stop at separation. He strengthened the Royal Navy, turning ships into floating palaces ready to sail. The North Atlantic, once a realm of harsh trials, became a path for Protestant communities to reach the icy lands of Iceland, planting seeds for an England that was both religiously independent and globally ambitious. In the golden sunlight of the late 16th century, Queen Elizabeth I, 1558 to 1603, lit the flame of a new age of exploration. She handed a sword to Francis Drake, the proud privateer, and sent him to challenge Spanish roots in 1568, a defiant echo across the ocean. At the same time, Sir Humphrey Gilbert and Sir Walter Raleigh were tasked with mapping distant lands, laying the groundwork for imperial ascent. Though Raleigh's 1583 Newfoundland colony faded like a footprint in cold sand, England's victory over the Spanish Armada in 1588 engraved its name on maritime history, proving the Navy's unshakable strength. When Elizabeth's golden reign ended, the crown passed to James VI of Scotland, now James the Fard of England, through the Union of the Crowns in 1603. A new era began with the founding of Jamestown, Virginia, 1607, the first permanent settlement where pioneering footsteps marked the red mud, and seeds of civilization began to grow. Carrying the spirit of a new century, English ships sliced through the seas, bringing Protestant values and royal ambitions to Barbados, 1624, Nevis, 1628, Maryland, 1634, and Connecticut, 1639. Each colony was a compass pointing outward, propelling the British Empire toward every corner of the world, charting a steady course for overseas dreams. History surged forward into the mid-17th century as England was torn by civil war, 1642 to 1651. Amid the smoke and blood of battles like Naseby and Marston Moor, parliamentarians clashed with royalists loyal to King Charles I. In 1649, the king's silver head fell at a tragic crossroads, ushering in a republic under Oliver Cromwell. From 1653, Cromwell reigned as Lord Protector, ruling with military power and iron discipline, like a blacksmith forging a sword of state. But when he closed his eyes for the last time in 1658, the longing for stability stirred again. The 1660 Restoration crowned Charles II, reviving the monarchy the people had yearned for amid chaos. Crossing into the 18th century, England expanded its global reach. During the War of the Spanish Succession, 1701 to 1714, the Union Jack waved over Acadia and Newfoundland. The 7 Years' War, 1756 to 1763, and the Treaty of Paris gave Britain control of Canada and Florida, affirming its place as the world's leading naval empire. But victory sowed seeds of dissent among the 13 North American colonies, triggering the American Revolution, 1775 to 1783. The cry of "No taxation without representation" rang out like a bell of liberty, and the United States was born. As industrial life surged, factory chimneys stretched toward the sky. The Industrial Revolution, beginning in the mid-18th century, transformed Britain into the workshop of the world. Through steam and smoke, iron rails and steamships carried irreversible change. When Napoleon rose, the Royal Navy, led by Nelson, crushed the Spanish fleet at Trafalgar, 1805, and Wellington's victories, most notably at Waterloo, 1815, cemented peace across Europe, ending the firestorm of the French Empire. The 19th century opened with dazzling conquests. Like an eagle spreading its wings, Britain took Java, 1811, Singapore, 1819, Malacca, 1824, Burma, 1826, then reached the ancient sands of Egypt, 1882, and Sudan's harsh deserts, 1898. The lifeblood of the empire flowed through the Suez Canal, 1883, an artery linking London to India, ensuring British sails would always rise over the seas. In the 20th century, the British Empire stood tall, its colonial web stretching from India and Africa to the Caribbean and Asia. The Royal Navy, with thousands of advanced warships, ruled unchallenged, safeguarding trade and the maritime lifelines. Yet amid the scent of gunpowder and steam, a storm named World War I, 1914 to 1918, erupted, turning pride into a sea of sorrow. Britons once believed in the invincibility of their Island Blue Army, but Europe's battlefields became crucibles of death. Millions, sons, brothers, friends, marched to war, many never to return. Trenches filled with blood and fog, and the sound of funeral trains carrying the dead home echoed like a national dirge. The economy faltered, ports were blockaded, and doubts began to rise over the meaning of an empire that never sets. The 1919 Treaty of Versailles ended the carnage, but couldn't erase the pain. Instead, it shattered Britain's political fabric. In 1922, Ireland, the Emerald Land to the west, formally split off, giving birth to the Irish Free State. As autumn leaves fell on ancient castles, the Irish took their first steps toward full independence in 1937. Before wounds could heal, the world faced a new wave of hatred. World War II, 1939 to 1945. Britain stood with the Allies, alongside the US, the Soviet Union, and others, against fascism. During the Blitz, London burned red, civilians crammed into shelters, but determination never wavered. Bombs couldn't silence the chimes of Big Ben, nor shake the resolve to defend freedom. Victory came at a cost. Britain paid dearly. Most Southeast Asian colonies, Burma, Malaya, Singapore, New Guinea, fell to Japanese forces during the dark years. On deck, many watched the royal sails fade into the distance. Though the Allies ultimately prevailed, Britain no longer held the power it once did. The twin disasters of world wars awakened Britain to a harsh truth. Its radiant empire was entering decline. Though the colonial network still appeared on maps, public faith in a world beneath the crown had vanished. Glorious and ruinous chapters mingled, leaving sobering lessons about human life and the limits of power. At the doorstep of a new century, Britain entered a new era, proud but deeply scarred. After 1945, the tide of independence surged across continents. India won its freedom in 1947, followed by a wave of self-rule across the empire. The Suez Crisis of 1956 marked the limits of British might. And in 1997, when Hong Kong was returned to China, the final page of the British Empire's atlas was turned, restoring freedom to lands that had been entwined with it for nearly 5 centuries.